My name is Rutendo. I am from Mutare, the city where the mountains meet the clouds. And 3 years ago, I almost became a runaway bride. Not because I didn't love Tendai, but because I thought love alone would be enough. We had dated for 6 years. Tendai was my university sweetheart, the quiet type, always focused, always dependable. Everyone said we were the perfect couple, but no one talks about what happens after the engagement party ends and real life begins. It started 6 months before our wedding. We had just paid Lobola in Nyazura, and tensions were rising. The pressure to plan the perfect wedding, combined with financial stress, brought us parts of us we never had seen before. Tendai had lost his job at a logistic company in Harare, and I was working overtime at the clinic to keep us afloat. Suddenly, conversations were no longer about our honeymoon destinations, but about costs, guest lists, catering, dresses, and decor. We stopped talking like lovers and started talking like business partners in a failing company. Then came the fights. "You don't listen," I screamed one night, throwing my phone on the kitchen table. "And you don't understand how much I'm carrying on my back," he snapped, ice cold. It hurt. Tendai had always been my safe space, but now he was my opponent in every argument. I confided in my best friend Tariro, who told me straight, "You are planning a wedding, but have you planned a marriage?" That question haunted me. One day, 3 weeks before our wedding, I broke down at church in Sakuba. My pastor's wife, Mai Chibanda, noticed and pulled me aside. I told her everything. She nodded, then said something I will never forget. "Marriage is not built at the wedding. It's built in the fire, and sometimes that fire starts before the vows." She asked me to bring Tendai for counseling. I was hesitant but desperate. We went. The first session was awful. He sat with his arms folded. I cried. But by the third session, we were talking not just about our frustrations, but about our fears. Tendai admitted he felt like a failure. I admitted I felt abandoned. And slowly, painfully, we began to reconnect, not as perfect lovers, but as two flawed people choosing each other anyway. On our wedding day, as I stood in the back of the church, my heart pounding, I remembered the bride I almost didn't become. I remembered the dress I nearly left behind. When the doors opened and I saw him, my imperfect, brave Tendai, I smiled through my tears. Our wedding in Mutare was beautiful, but it wasn't the fairy tale people expect to hear about. There were no doves flying in the sky. The generator cut during the reception, and the DJ had to connect his speaker to someone's car battery. The cake arrived an hour late, and my auntie accidentally spilled stew on my white dress while hugging me. But Tendai and I laughed together. That was the difference. A few weeks before, these things would have made us scream at each other, but now we were on the same side of the battlefield. The real story of our marriage began after the guests went home, after the makeup came off, and after the photographers stopped clicking. That's when the real test began. We moved into a small cottage in Dangamvura, behind my uncle's house. It had 1 bedroom, a leaking sink, and a tiny stove that only worked when you heat it just right. That's where we started our life, not in a house we bought, but in one we were renting. With love, humility, and a lot of prayers. Tendai still didn't have a job. He would leave every morning with a plastic folder full of CVs, knocking on doors in the scorching sun, while I worked double shifts at the clinic. There were days he came home with nothing but rejection letters and a tired smile, but he never gave up. We fought sometimes about money, about chores, about the little things like who forgot to lock the gate. But each fight ended with a conversation, a real one. I started learning how to cook with what we had, making salsa with kovo or rice with carpenter and tomato. Tendai would sit and peel garlic, saying, "Babe, this food tastes like it came from the hotel." Even though we both knew it didn't, but that was his way of saying thank you. I cherished those moments more than anything. One day we were walking to town to save Kombi fare, and he suddenly turned to me and said, "Rutendo, I've been thinking, even if I never get a fancy job, would you still be happy with me?" I stopped walking and held his hand. "Tendai, I didn't marry a title. I married a man." He didn't cry, but his eyes watered. That was the moment I knew we had chosen each other again. Eventually, God opened a door. A friend from his church in Harare called and offered him a job in a small logistic firm in Marondera. It wasn't big, but it was honest work, and it gave him dignity again. We cried together the day he received his first salary. Now, 3 years later, we are still living in that same cottage. We have saved a little, we have lost a little, we have grown a lot. And I have learned something. No marriage counselor, no bridal shower auntie, no social media post ever told me. Marriage is not about perfection. It's about choosing each other on the mountaintop, in the valley, and everywhere between. When I see young brides now overwhelmed with flower budgets and matching suits, I tell them this story. I tell them about the rice, the leaking sink, the DJ and the car battery. I tell them about almost walking away in my white dress. Sometimes people ask me, "Rutendo, how did you know he was the one?" And I smiled gently, because the truth is, I didn't know in the beginning. I chose and I kept choosing every day. There were days when Tendai and I didn't even talk over supper, not because we were angry, but because we were just tired. Life, you see, doesn't pause to give newlyweds a grace period. Rent was due. My young sister in Usape needed school fees. His cousin in Chitungwiza got sick and wanted money to go to the hospital. The weight of being everyone's hope was pressing us from every side. But one night, I found Tendai sitting in the dark, holding his Bible, tears running down his face. He said, "I feel like I'm failing you, failing us." I knelt in front of him and said, "Tendai, you are not failing, you are growing. And growing pains feel like failure until you look back." We held each other in silence that night. No words, just warmth. You see, the world teaches us that marriage is about constant happiness, romantic dinners, getaways to Nyanga lodges, and Victoria Falls selfies. But the truth, marriage is carrying firewood together in the rain and still finding a reason to laugh. It's waking up to sweep the yard at 5 a.m. and discovering he has already done it because he heard you cough in the middle of the night. It's washing his socks with your hands when the washing machine breaks and not thinking less of yourself for it. It's like hearing your neighbors say, "Ah, Rutendo and Tendai vari kugara zvavo zvakanaka," and smiling, because only you and God know the battles you have fought in silence. And it's also sitting on your bed one evening, whispering a prayer. Lord, give me the grace to love you when it's hard, and give him the grace to love me when I'm unlovable. We faced more challenges. I had a miscarriage the second year of our marriage. It was early, just 10 weeks, but the pain felt like the earth had cracked beneath my feet. Tendai held me in his arms that night as I wept like a child. He didn't say a word, he just held me, and that silence healed places no words could ever reach. He cried too, but he waited until I was asleep. That's what real love does. It shows up. It stays when others would walk away. It grows even in the drought. We started praying together every morning before we left the house. Just 5 minutes, sometimes in silence, sometimes holding hands. It was in those quiet prayers that marriage grew roots. We were no longer standing on feelings, emotions, or excitement. We were rooted in something deeper: God, choice, and commitment. Now, when I see young girls on Facebook posting relationship goals pictures, I want to tell them the real goals are not in the pictures, they are in the private moments. When you forgive, when you wait, when you grow. If you are reading this and you are engaged or married but struggling, I want to say something to you with all the love in my heart. You don't need a perfect partner. You need a willing one. Someone who will hold your hand in prayer, not just in public. Someone who will build with you, not just enjoy the finished house. Someone who sees your flaws and still says, "You are mine." Marriage is not built on the wedding day. It's built in the months and years to follow, brick by brick, forgiveness by forgiveness, choice by choice. And if you are thinking of walking away, pause. Pause and ask yourself, is this a moment that will pass or a pattern that will destroy? Because sometimes all you need is one more try, one more conversation, and one more prayer together. Looking back now, 3 years later, I can say this with confidence. Love isn't a fairy tale. It's a battlefield where two people fight, not against each other, but for each other, every single day. I used to think love meant never feeling pain, never having conflict. I used to believe if something was truly meant to be, it would be effortless. But now I know better. Because love, real love, will test you. It will break you open and give you the chance to heal stronger together. It will reveal your worst habits, your impatience, your fears, your pride, and still give you someone who says, "Let's work through it." There was a time I got very sick. We thought it was just the flu, but my body wouldn't recover. I had no energy, no appetite. I couldn't even go to work. For weeks I was in bed, bones aching, my skin pale and dry. We didn't have money for the private doctors, so Tendai took me to the cancer clinic. Every other day, sitting in queues with me, holding my hands. One night, I woke up and found him praying over me in the dark, whispering softly, "Lord, don't take her away. I can lose everything, but not her." That night changed me because for the first time, I saw what it means to truly be loved. Not when you are dressed in a white gown and surrounded by flowers, but when you are weak, worn out, and unsure if you will ever rise again. And someone chooses you anyway. After I recovered, I began to see life differently. I stopped comparing my marriage to others. I stopped wishing for another kind of life. I began to count our blessings one by one. The way he runs to the gate when he hears me coming, the way we laugh while peeling groundnuts in the kitchen, the way he covers me with a blanket when I fall asleep on the couch, the way we sit outside on hot nights, dreaming together about building our own house in Zimre Park someday. Small things, but real, true, and ours. Tendai and I still argue sometimes. We are human. There are days when we misunderstand each other, days when life throws curveballs, like when his young brother came to live with us unexpectedly, or when my job delayed salary for 2 months. But we have learned something golden. Don't fight to win, fight to understand. Don't raise your voice, raise your prayers. Don't shut each other out, let each other in. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. There's a Shona proverb my grandmother used to say, Ukama igasha, unozadziswa nekudya. Relationships are incomplete. They are made whole through sharing. But it's not just food we must share. We must share our burdens, share dreams, share forgiveness, share patience. Now, when I look at Tendai, I no longer see the men I married. I see the men we built together, the men who stayed, the men who chose me daily, even when I wasn't easy to love. And I thank God I didn't walk away that day in the garden with my bouquet in my hands and tears in my eyes. Because had I walked away, I would have missed the most beautiful chapter of my life. So, dear bride, dear wife, dear woman listening to this, if the foundation is good, don't throw it away because of a storm. Every marriage has its rainy seasons. But rain doesn't destroy a house that's built on rock. It simply waters the roots beneath it. We finally moved into our own home. It wasn't fancy, no tiles, no built-in cupboards, no geyser, but it was ours. Every brick, every wall, every nail held a part of our story. Tendai and I had bought a stand in Zivaresekwa Extension. For 2 years, we lived in a one-roomed cabin on the site where we slowly built the house with the little we could save. Some nights we had no electricity. Some days we cooked outside with fire, but we had a roof over our heads, love in our hearts, and peace in our home. And honestly, that was more than enough. One afternoon, while sweeping the dusty concrete floor of what would soon be our bedroom, I paused and just stared at the window. The light was pouring in, soft, golden, holy, and I broke down into tears. Not because I was sad, because I finally understood what it meant when the Bible says, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." We had sown in hardship, in misunderstanding, in perseverance, in faith. And now we were reaping with joy. That same year, we welcomed our baby boy, Takudzwa. I can't even begin to describe what it felt like to hold him in my arms. His tiny hands, his eyes, shaped just like Tendai's. The first night in the hospital, I watched Tendai sleeping on a chair beside me, one hand on my bed and the other on the baby blanket. That was the moment I realized we didn't just survive marriage, we had grown into it. It wasn't always pretty, it wasn't always romantic, but it was always real. We had gone from 2 strangers in love to 2 companions, partners, co-builders, prayer warriors, and friends. Now, when I see him playing with our son in the yard or teaching him to plant tomatoes in old buckets, I smile quietly because this ordinary, God-blessed life is what I almost walked away from in that garden on our wedding day. If I had let my fear speak louder than my faith, I would have missed out on this glory. So to every woman listening, hear me. Marriage isn't for the perfect. is for the willing, for those who choose grace over ego, peace over pride, patience over pressure. Yes, not every marriage will work. Not every situation is meant to be saved. But before you throw it away, fight for it. If the foundation is good, if the man is willing, if there is respect, faith and effort, fight for it. Because beyond the hard days, beyond the silent nights, beyond the shed tears, there is something sacred waiting for you, a love that has been tested by fire and came out gold. To all my young sisters out there who are newly married or about to say I do, please sit down and let me talk to you, not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who has walked through the storm barefoot and come out holding her shoes in her hands. Marriage is beautiful, yes, but let me tell you the truth nobody writes under wedding pictures on Facebook. There will be days when you won't feel in love. There will be moments you will question if you made the right choice. There will be seasons where communication breaks down, where bills pile, where your emotions feel like they are betraying you. But don't panic. Love is not a feeling, it's a decision. Every single day, you will have to decide, am I building or breaking? Am I pouring in or draining out? Let me tell you what I have learned with my scars and my smile. Don't listen to too many people. What broke someone's marriage might not break yours. Don't let outsiders tell you when to leave your marriage unless there is abuse. Listen to God. Talk to your husband. Seek wisdom to people who love peace, not those who enjoy drama. Be honest with your feelings, but don't weaponize them. Tell your husband when you feel hurt, neglected, or overwhelmed. But don't attack him. Don't shut him out. Don't try to win every argument. Remember, you are not enemies. You are a team. Pray more than you complain. Sometimes the change you want to see in your husband starts in the secret place of prayer. The things I tried to fight Tendai over in 1 year, God sorted in 3 years without me nagging. Protect your home from comparison. Social media will show you women getting gifts, trips and luxury. But remember this, they don't post their arguments, their tears, their cold nights. Stay focused on your journey. Celebrate your small wins. Even if it's just buying curtains or paying off a debt, clap for yourself. Intimacy isn't just physical. Talk, laugh, take walks together, sit and dream. Be his peace. Let him be yours. Marriage is not a prison. It's a garden. Tend to it, water it, and watch it grow. My sisters, you don't need a perfect man. You need a committed one. And you don't need to be a perfect wife. Just be a present one. Learn together, fail together, win together. Because in the end, the wedding is just 1 day. But the marriage, that's your real story. Write it well, with kindness, with forgiveness, with grace, and with love that doesn't run away at the first storm. I almost walked away from my marriage. Now I can't imagine life without it. So, to the woman standing at the edge, don't jump. To the one crying quietly at night, don't give up. To the one who just said, I do, don't be afraid. You are not alone, and your love story isn't over. It's just the beginning. Thank you so much for watching.